All right, so this is the traditional EasyBuild State of the Union talk, which we usually start with at the EasyBuild user meeting. It's a bit similar as it was at previous editions, so looking at results from the EasyBuild User Survey that we've been doing for a while now. But I have some side steps left and right, and some spoilers for upcoming talks as well. I tried to limit that a bit, but I couldn't resist to some extent. The first thing I'll start with is explaining a bit more about the additional logos here. So there's EasyBuild, which I expect everybody here knows about at least, or knows what it is. Then there's the Easy project as well, and there's the Multiscale European Center of Excellence. So let me start with that. EasyBuild, I guess I don't have to explain, so I'll skip this slide. It's just there for people that are picking up the recording maybe later, so they can get an idea. What's important here is to discriminate between EasyBuild and Easy. So to some extent, we shot ourselves in the foot there by using a name that's very similar, or at least very related. There's a bit of confusion about that. So Easy, at least in my point of view, to some extent, is an evolution of the EasyBuild project. So it's like a next step. Rather than working on a tool together, we can work on the actual software stack together and try and share that in a way that it works pretty much everywhere that you want to use it. So we call it a community project, which started in 2020, shortly before the pandemic hit. I was invited to a meeting in Delft in the Netherlands because some Dutch universities were interested in working on something together. They weren't really sure about what, but one common pain they had was dealing with software installations, even though most of them were already using EasyBuild. They were also keeping a close eye on what Compute Canada was doing in the time with their shared software stack. And they basically wanted to kickstart something like this in the Netherlands, at least, and maybe in Europe and beyond that. So at that first meeting, it was only discussions and some ideas. But at the end of the meeting, we sort of agreed, okay, let's try and make this happen, and maybe even try and get some funding for that and see where it goes. Then the pandemic hit, so suddenly we had a lot of time to work on stuff. So by the end of summer 2020, we essentially had like a very early proof of concept, quick and dirty puzzle together of what Compute Canada was running already for years on their system. So we were pretty confident that we could pull it off if we really wanted to, and if we had let's say the manpower and the funding to do so. So the main goal of the Easy project is to build a shared software stack, so the actual software installations themselves in some shape or form, which is optimized for different types of CPU. So we don't want to cut corners there like people often do with container images, for example. So the installation should still be optimized for particular CPUs. And we want to make it easily accessible and publicly accessible, so anyone who wants to can access that. So that's very similar to what Compute Canada is doing as well, except maybe the community aspect. So they're mostly focused on the systems in Canada, not so much beyond that. The focus of the project, ease of use, performance is a given, I think. Software testing as well. So we don't want to just install that software, but we also want to make sure it actually works and keeps working. So that's why we're building a test suite, and we're doing lots of effort on that. It should be automated as much as possible because we're expecting thousands of software installations on this for different types of CPUs. So if we're doing that by hand, we're not going to get very far. And that's also why we need to collaborate more together. So to some extent, this is an answer to EasyBuild not being good enough anymore. EasyBuild is a tool, but even if you use EasyBuild, you often run into trouble with installations because of site-specific changes or specific aspects to your systems. And yeah, it's time to take a next step and work together more on something that's a bit more shared. All of this is supported or powered by open source software. EasyBuild is one of the projects in this, but it's definitely not the only one. LMOD is used to give the user environment. CernVMFS is used to distribute the software. Gen2 prefix is used as a middle layer to make sure we give installations that work on any Linux distribution. Reframe is used for testing, and so on. So Lara will cover all of that in detail on Thursday morning. So I won't spend too much time on this here. The connection to Multiscale, so to the other logo on the slide, is that the Multiscale Euro HPC Center of Excellence is essentially funding the current effort of the Easy project. So after we started in 2020, the first thing I think we did was write up a paper, an open access paper that explained our ideas. And then we started looking for funding. So we applied for European funding together with some scientific partners. And then in the end got accepted and became the multi-scale Center of Excellence. So we'll go into detail on all of that on Thursday. I won't spoil the fun too much here. A little bit more on multi-scale. So it's a Euro HPC project, or I'm not really supposed to call it a project. It's more a consortium of a bunch of partners. It's 16 partners in total. Ghent University through the HPC team is one of the partners. And there's really two aspects to the project. There's services to facilitate development and deployment of scientific software. That's just a nice way of saying we're going to sponsor EASY. And that's basically the 6 partners mentioned there, including HPC Now, University of Bergen in Norway, University of Barcelona, Ghent University, University of Groningen, and the SURF Center in the Netherlands are involved with that activity. And then there's a bunch of other partners involved with the scientific side of the project, which is the development of software for efficient large-scale, multi-scale simulations, which we're not going to go into that too much. We're more focused on the technical parts. What this really boils down to is it's a source of funding for the EASY project. So to really make EASY happen the way we envision it, and hence indirectly, to some extent, it's also funding EasyBuild because, for example, Lara and Pedro here in the room are quite new to the community, and they only came into the EasyBuild community through the multi-scale project. So there's definitely some connection there as well. What's also important, and that already has some impact and will have some impact in the near future as well, is that this gets us a seat at the table in the Euro HPC community. So people are now listening to us where they maybe were not listening to us before. We are getting very good feedback on the idea of using EASY as a shared software stack across Europe. So that's definitely snowballing into something that may be popping up at hopefully all the Euro HPC systems in the future. And then, of course, also the smaller systems that are inspired by that. So we hope that actually happens. All right, and then just some things to mention here in the scope of that. The multi-scale project and EASY on the side was mentioned as an example of a center of excellence that aligns well with the goals of the Euro HPC joint undertaking. That was a surprise to us. We didn't know that they were going to raise us or put us in the spotlight like that at the Euro HPC User Day, but it happened. So that's a good sign of them being supportive for the ideas that we have. We did a half-day online tutorial on CERN-VMFS and EASY as well in December last year, where we got over 200 registrations and over 130 people attending the Zoom session live. So that was way beyond what we expected. So that shows there's a lot of interest in this topic, in CERN-VMFS in general, but also in the EASY project more specifically. That was very good news. And also at the Euro HPC Summit last month in March in Antwerp, we tried to promote multi-scale and EASY as well to the Euro HPC community. As we got involved in several sessions there, including the poster session, including in some presentations. And we even managed to show at least the EASY logo and the multi-scale logo on the very big screen in the room where they were doing some demos. So that was interesting. And this is probably going to snowball into more interest for multi-scale, for EASY, and indirectly also for EasyBuild. All right, then back to the more traditional part of the presentation is the EasyBuild User Survey. So how many people here participated in the survey? You can be honest. Almost everybody. Lars didn't. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. No, overall, we're quite happy with the participation here. So getting over 100 people to fill out the survey. I have to push for that a little bit, so send out reminders again and again, but that's the same thing every year. So we're actually quite happy with that. I actually cut out a couple of questions from this survey. Maybe you didn't mention because it's still a lot of questions. But I'm trying to keep it focused on the stuff that we think matters. The full results will eventually be available through the EasyBuild documentation as well. They're not there yet because I'm not finished with preparing that. But I'm hoping to finish that in let's say the next couple of weeks. So you'll see all the details in there. I will cover the highlights of the survey and the most interesting results, or the things that I think we should be aware of or should maybe discuss this week. Those will be covered in the talk. What's very good about having 7 years of surveys is that you start seeing trends, where we're coming from, where we're going, and that's definitely very interesting. So I hope we can keep this up, and keep using this as a way to get some insights into the community. What is very important if you're doing a survey is that there's a huge amount of bias, and to be aware of that. So people who fill out the survey, or maybe people who don't fill out the survey, you need to take into account that happens. People who are very busy are probably not going to take, I want to say, half an hour, maybe it was longer, to fill out the survey. So you're missing some of those. People who tried EasyBuild for a short while, were not happy with it, and then chucked it away, they probably won't pop up in the survey. So if it feels overly positive, that's probably just a natural thing for the survey like this. So taking all of that into account when looking at the results is important. Just keep that in the back of your head. I tried to do that when I looked at the results, but maybe I forgot every now and then. So feel free to point that out as well if I'm a bit too positive, or if I'm misinterpreting something according to you. A new question I added, because I felt I had the room, is if people have participated in the survey before. What's interesting here is that it's a nice mix of people who are experienced participants in the survey. So over half of them have at least filled it out once or multiple times. And about 40% are new to the survey at all. So that's already, to me, that's good. That's a mix of different types of people. New to the survey, maybe not necessarily new to the community, and people who have filled it out quite a bit already. Demographics, so what kind of role do people have? This is pretty stable over the years. The biggest part is still sysadmins, or people who consider themselves sysadmins. That's maybe not a surprise. I guess that's we know that's the type of community where we have in EasyBuild. What's interesting is that the user support ratio is going down, but the RSE, so the research software engineer role, is going up. It's a kind of new thing, and I guess people are just rebranding themselves as RSEs rather than user support. I'm not sure it makes a lot of difference in practice, but that's definitely popping up here. What is interesting to me is that only 1% of the people here primarily consider themselves as software developers. And this is known to be very different from SPAC, for example, where they've done surveys as well, where they easily see over half of the people, I think, considering themselves to be software developers. So that's one reason why I said before, I don't see SPAC as competition, not because it's not a good tool, but just because the community is very different and the focus of the project is very different. Where are people geographically? Also no surprise here, mostly in Europe, a little bit more than 10% in North America. What is interesting here, and I don't want to overly interpret this, but the European part is going up. Is EasyBuild becoming more European than it already is? Are people in the US moving more towards SPAC? I don't know. Maybe I'm over-interpreting here, but it is interesting that it is going up.
We'll have to see next year.
Yeah, maybe next year it will go down again. I don't know. But it may be just bias. I have no idea. But it is, yeah. It's very clear that we're very European, which is okay, to me at least. How long have people been using EasyBuild? Well, again, a big mix. The let's say between 2 and 10 years is the biggest part of the community. So there's a lot of experience overall. That's very good. That means if there are any questions, there's probably, or there should be, a lot of people who can answer your question. To me, that's a good thing. There is still an influx of new people. To some extent, the Easy project is responsible for that as well, a bit at least. And there is a very small group, it's now about 5%, who has over a decade of experience with EasyBuild. That's interesting. We never expected this to happen when we open sourced EasyBuild initially. Certainly not that it was going to become as big as it is today, and that people are going to stick around for the long run, let's say. So to me, that's a very good sign as well. If anyone has any remarks or any questions, shout. If I'm saying something stupid or something you disagree with, I'm very happy to hear it. We have a microphone. Where's the mic? Yeah, we have a microphone to pass around as well, so people who are remote can pick up on that too. Yeah, in terms of experience with EasyBuild, one thing I think we should be very aware of, because there's clearly a bias towards people who have a lot of experience. What those experienced people should stay aware of or take into account, that there's also people new to the tool coming in pretty much all the time. They're not in big volumes, but they are there. And that we're trying to be welcome to these people. So people who are not very experienced yet, who are maybe not aware of some hidden policies or hidden best practices that we have, who may ask interesting questions. And I want to call it stupid questions because those don't exist. But who may ask questions that you say, okay, how did you not figure this out already? Usually when those type of questions come, it probably means we're not doing our job right in terms of documentation, in terms of errors that EasyBuild produces, I don't know what. So that's usually a sign of something that we could improve, and it's good to keep that in the back of your head as a more experienced EasyBuilder. Since we have a lot of experience, there's a lot that we can help these people with, but also the other way around. If they give feedback, it's very, very good to listen to them and try to take that into account one way or another, and to just be open to questions. Now, I think in general, we're quite good at that, especially in Slack. I think we're fairly welcoming. If questions are raised there, usually somebody is answering those questions. It's also different people answering questions. At least that's what I'm seeing as a very high level thing. And I think that's very good. I hope we can keep that up. We don't have an official what's it called, code of conduct for EasyBuild. I don't really feel we need one. It would be good to have one for sure. But up until now, in that 12 years of open source EasyBuild, I'm not aware of any serious problems in the community. Hopefully that never happens, but yeah. So that's also to me a very, very good sign of a very healthy community. Yeah, so experienced EasyBuilders definitely go blind to certain things. We're so used to doing something in a particular way. I always use the example of creating patch files. To most of us, it's very obvious. To people who are new to the project, it's like, I have no idea where to even start or what the best practices are. And that's probably one thing we still haven't documented well. So there's definitely lots of things there that we should be aware of, taking into account. And again, here, easy and multi-scale, I think, is part of this for the influx of new people. That's very good. What's also important to realize there is the people coming in from that angle are funded to work not really on EasyBuild, but at least with EasyBuild, but are also for doing that in a specific context, so in the context of easy. So maybe they're focusing more on problems or features or easy conflicts that are very relevant there, and not so much to the broader EasyBuild community. So that's something to be at least aware of as well. Maybe this is something we can get back to in the discussion part. If anyone has ideas on this, they're definitely welcome. How did people first learn about EasyBuild? It's a bit jumpy left and right, but what it really boils down to is word of mouth. So people talking to other people, people giving talks, people doing hands-on demos. A big part and a growing part as well that's the red line, the red part in the pie chart as well, is people who learn about EasyBuild on the job. So there's that's also to me a good sign. It means that sites have adopted EasyBuild, are sticking to it, and feel the need to train their people, the new people coming in into EasyBuild as well. How many people here are in that category? That's even half of the room, pretty much. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. So again, I think that's a good sign of a healthy community. Sites stick to EasyBuild and realize they need to train their people in using it as well. You have to blame me for getting you into EasyBuild. Okay. Well, was it the beer that did it, or? Yeah, the new EasyBuild logo. I kept this slide because we had it at the last meeting as well, where it was very fresh. Now it's not so fresh anymore. So we swapped to a new EasyBuild logo. The old one is on the top left. That's for you, right? So someone here mentioned during the welcome that he managed to flip around the old and the new logo. So he answered in the survey that he didn't like the new logo, but he was actually thinking about the old logo. All right. So the 6% here is more like 5%, right? Okay. But and I know there's some people here, and I'm not sure, Sam, you were very critical of the new logo. Has it grown on you, or?
I buried my X, so it's
okay. So you're fine with it now. Yeah. Right. It felt like a nice way to celebrate 10 years of EasyBuild to me. And in the end, I don't think it has really backfired. It's pretty okay. There's a small group who doesn't really like it, 12%, maybe a bit less. Fine. They can come up with a new logo that's better than both, and then we can see. Maybe for 10 years user meeting. Yeah. I mean, we'll definitely try and have some swag there. If you want a coffee mug with a new logo, Sam, you should come to Jülich maybe next year. Yeah. Then you can smash it against the wall. Overall, I think this has worked out quite well. This was actually a lot of effort in the end. When I think back to this, it was like a lot of back and forth with a friend of mine who was designing logos for a living. So he helped me quite a bit there. In the end, it looks very simple, but that's typically what happens with a logo as well. I have to keep it simple to keep it good. So I spent way too much time on this. I'm happy it's behind me. If somebody else wants another logo, it's their problem, not mine. It's a challenge, yeah. Maybe you can give a talk next year on a better logo for it. Okay. Getting a bit more technical, maybe, and interesting. And operating systems and EasyBuild community, it's still, and that's probably not going to change anytime soon, very heavily Red Hat based. Now that CentOS 7 line is dropping like a stone, that seems very good. There's one detail though in this survey, the last one, you were only able to pick one operating system, the most commonly used one. In the previous ones, that was different. You could make multiple choices. So that's why that black line is there. You cannot really compare left and right to each other. So be a little bit careful on how you interpret this one. But it is clear that people are stepping away from CentOS 7. It's end of life. Is it on the slide? Mid this year. So you better step away from it, right? If you're not doing that yet, be aware that there won't be any updates after June of this year. And currently, still about 20% of the community says that this is their major operating system. Maybe they're planning to move away from it. I hope they are. But it's important to be aware of this, at least. It looks like Rocky Linux 8 in combination with Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8 is replacing that. So that's the other two dots, right? Well, the blue one is Rocky Linux. The green one is Red Hat Enterprise Linux. That's where most of the community is shifting to. But what's already happening, and that's what we're starting to look at in Ghent as well, is already making the jump to RHEL 9. So we're very soon going to have a mix of RHEL 8 based and RHEL 9 based operating systems that people are working with. It's very good to be aware of this. It means we know what to test for essentially in EasyBuild. We better come up with something that at least works in both, and ideally still works in CentOS 7 as well. I'm looking at Adam. I know Adam does a lot of testing in CentOS 7, and sometimes runs into trouble that we overlook in the other ones. It looks like it's still important enough to try and keep that up. Although you're, I think, a bit of a lone wolf there in terms of testing on CentOS 7. Yeah. You're
just for the heck of it.
Just for the heck, yeah. You're also in containers, I guess. Yeah.
Easy reverse.
Yeah, but it's good to be aware. We definitely shouldn't only test with one particular operating system. That would be not a good idea. So mostly RHEL based. There are others out there. I didn't actually mention most of them on the slide. So everything left of the line is RHEL based. CentOS 6 is now gone happily, but finally, it's the first year that nobody answered CentOS 6. The ones on the right of the line, Ubuntu 20.04 and 22.04, those are the only ones that at some point reached over 10% of adoption in the EasyBuild community. Everything else, so newer versions of Ubuntu, older versions, Debian, SUSE, whatever other operating system you can think of, is definitely below 10% and very often below 5% of adoption. So we're very heavily RHEL based. I personally don't see this changing anytime soon. If somebody else thinks it will, let us know, because then we should definitely be aware of it. But I don't see it happening. But
CentOS 6, it might also be due to change of questions, right?
Can you pass the mic? For CentOS 6, it's due to
change of question.
Only
to one OS. So maybe there are still some CentOS 6 on some systems.
Some people may have some,
but not as the main one.
Some dying clusters running CentOS 6 or something.
I mean, it's not my case, but
yeah. Hopefully not, because CentOS 6 is end of life since years, right? But okay, maybe people opt into taking that risk. Let's see where this goes. We'll definitely have to deal with at least a mix of Red Hat based stuff for the years to come. That's probably going to stay like that. Then Python versions. This is a very nice graph. I like this one a lot. So which Python version are you using to run EasyBuild? You had to pick one here. So this adds up. This should add up to 100%, unless I messed up something. Python 2.7 is now at 5%. People should be getting deprecation warnings if you're doing that, because EasyBuild will drop support for running on top of Python 2.7. Finally, I should say, in EasyBuild 5. So Python 2.7 is end of life since end of 2020 already. But we are quite slow with dropping support for that, because we know too many people were still relying on it. So we kept it as long as we could. The biggest Python version being used now is Python 3.6, which is no surprise. That's the default Python in anything RHEL 8 based, which is fine. I think officially it's already end of life or close to end of life. It's already end of life, yeah. But Red Hat is going to maintain that for a while, so that's not a big issue that it's end of life there. It's also no surprise that it's being adopted, but that really only gets us to, let's say, about 60%. That means everything else is splintered across a bunch of Python 3 versions. That's annoying. We can't really change that, but it's something to be very aware of. I want to say that's fine because there's no breaking changes between Python versions, but that's very, very not true, right? We know that it's a huge pain, especially Python 3.12, which we're going to support in EasyBuild 5 was a massive pain, because they dropped some stuff from the standard library there. It's only not going to be a pain for us in EasyBuild, but also for any scientific project using Python. It's going to take time for them to actually support Python 3.12. That's a reality we have to deal with. It is what it is. We're very aware of that. We'll make sure that EasyBuild is tested, or at least testing the framework test suite on all these Python versions. So if we do introduce any trouble there, that will notice. But if you are in one of these splintered versions, if you're using another Python version and you're seeing a hard crash of EasyBuild or something that it's expecting to be there, it's not there, let us know. Please report it so we can fix it. So we definitely want to support essentially all the Python 3 versions newer than 3.6. EasyBuild should work on that. I'm not sure how long we will be stuck to 3.6, but probably years to come, it looks like, unless that's really gonna, unless there's a big incentive that people will start moving to RHEL 9, which is 3.9, I think, Python 3.9. I think so, yeah. But yeah, it's clear that the adoption of that is still quite low, so we'll see. So this is going to be a challenge going forward. We'll have to make sure we keep testing on enough versions. How many people are fine with getting rid of 2.7? Yeah, most of them are, of course. It's now basically 95%. 5% says it's problematic, but it's only problematic probably because they have to install 1 or 2 extra packages, which is very easy to do. Even on CentOS 7, you can very easily install a Python 3.6 and just tell EasyBuild to use that instead. So it shouldn't really cause any trouble for people in practice if they look into it for a couple of minutes. You've been getting deprecation warnings since January of last year. Hopefully the next release will actually drop support for Python 2.7. So then it's going to be a hard error, and there will be absolutely no way to still run EasyBuild on 2.7. We kicked out code that's supporting it, so it's not going to work anymore. So be aware of that if you're still using 2.7 somewhere. The size of systems that people are managing, this is not really specific to EasyBuild. So even if you're not using EasyBuild on these systems, you could still answer this question. Again, this is a huge mix of things, no surprise. Some people are apparently mostly using it on their laptop because that's, I think, the only place where you can get less than 100 cores these days. Huge mix. Some people are relatively small, less than 10,000 cores. So that's about 40%. Some people are in the middle, another 40%, and then anything else over 100,000 cores, which is actually not that difficult to be in these days. If you have one decent size system, a couple of hundreds of nodes, we're very quickly in this box. So yeah, nothing really special here. Nothing. I don't think that really makes a difference for EasyBuild, but it's good to know that at least people are using it on quite small systems as well. For GPUs, this is actually remarkably stable in terms of numbers of GPUs. Now, we know these things are expensive already and are only becoming more and more expensive. So I don't expect to see an upwards trend here in general. There's still a small part that has no GPUs at all and maybe wants to keep that up because it's additional effort. It's an additional ecosystem you have to figure out. Most of the sites have pretty low numbers of GPUs, so 100 or less. So it's not because you have only 100 GPUs that you're an odd duck, let's say. So especially, well, at least not in the EasyBuild community. So that's just good to know. All right, and pretty much all of this is NVIDIA. That's coming up as well. In terms of types of processors, Intel is still king today. It's going down. At least Intel Skylake is going down. Skylake is already actually relatively old, but it's still by far the most commonly used processor in the EasyBuild community, at least. What's interesting to me is that the older processors, Haswell, Broadwell, even Ivy Bridge, Sandy Bridge are sticking around. So people are not really killing their old hardware. At least some of them are not. That's definitely related to prices and being able to buy new hardware as well, of course. Cascade Lake and Ice Lake are seeing pretty good adoption. And Sapphire Rapids is coming. I don't have any experience with Sapphire Rapids myself, but that's a bit of an odd duck as well, because you have this mix of cores, I think, in Sapphire Rapids, E cores and P cores. I'm not sure if that's something we really need to do. Sorry?
Some of them have just standard one type of core.
Some of them only have one type of core. So the more high-end ones only have P cores then, or? Yeah, okay. So I personally haven't looked into this as well in detail myself. I'm not sure, is there something we should do with EasyBuild on this? Anything special, or is it, sorry?
Is it the same instruction set on the efficiency? And
the it's not, no. The efficiency cores don't support AVX 512, I think. Yeah, so I'm not sure, maybe that's all shoved to the compiler and the kernel for scheduling. I don't really know, but yeah, that's why I ask, is there something we need to do in EasyBuild for this? I don't think so, but
I might be wrong, but my understanding is that Sapphire Rapids only has P cores, because that's on the server roadmap, they only keep these homogeneous. Usually the mixture of the E cores and P cores is for the desktop. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I mean, I might be wrong, but I think that for the Sapphire Rapids, which I think is a server platform, it's supposed to be only P cores. The mixture is usually there on the desktop platforms.
Desktop and
where
laptops,
they mix the E cores and P cores, because I mean, you do that mostly for power reasons, right?
Yeah.
But for the server platforms, I mean, when you want to have high performance, and also, I mean, you have to run a lot of different workloads with different users, it's a mess having these different things. So I think that actually they don't mix them for the server platform, but yeah, I'm not wrong.
I was basically about to say the same thing, but I've not seen it. Yeah, just agree with that, is that I do have them and I've seen nothing go wrong on the server platform, Sapphire Rapids, so I don't think there's an issue, because I would hope somebody would have hit a problem.
There's not an issue for the server GPUs, at least. Yeah.
It'll be the desktop. I mean, but it might be those people who are using desktop type machines in a small cluster might end up with both types and need to be aware. And at that point, I have no idea.
And then what do you do? Do you build the thing twice, once for E cores and P cores, and scheduler figures it out? Because you need different binaries, or how does that work? Or you build a binary that works on both?
Fat binary, maybe.
Fat binaries,
there are options, but it's not anything I've had to explore, so I don't know.
Maybe you just shove it to the compiler then and say.
But you also hit, if you've got a scheduler there as well, you also, how do you schedule? You know, if you're say using Slurm, how do you schedule P versus P?
Yeah, well, it may boil down to pinning, right? Where you pin on the right cores and then.
But requesting it, you know, do you just request one or?
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of news or a lot of noise about this, so I expect it's largely a non-issue. But yeah. Okay, if somebody is aware of problems there or things we should be doing, let us know. But the non-Intel, and just be aware of the scales here. This goes up to 70%. Skylake here is at about 55. Looking at AMD, we're hitting at most 40%, so it's definitely lower than Intel, but it is quite significant. And what is interesting is that Milan, so Zen 3 is definitely on the rise. That's pretty clear. Zen 2 is maybe beyond its peak already. I'm not sure. Again, I don't want to over-interpret this, but at least there's a good mix of AMD and Intel going on, with Genoa coming up soon as well. So it's about, what is it, 12%, 13%, and older core still around as well. So it's clear that we're still in an x86 world currently, at least for most people. But as Miguel is also going to mention this afternoon, that's probably going to change in the coming years. There's no sign of RISC-V yet in the EasyBuild community. There's also no surprise there because the hardware really isn't there yet. But yeah, it's coming in the next couple of years at least. What's definitely coming is ARM. So NVIDIA Grace is we're hearing a lot of noise about people adopting that. Also in the Euro HPC community, so the bigger systems, there's Deucalion coming up in Portugal, which is Fujitsu A64FX based, so that's ARM based. And then there's Jupyter coming up as well. It should be there, what, summer next year, Alexander? Operational, something like this. Yeah. So Jupyter is Grace Hopper, so Grace CPUs, Hopper's GPUs, and then with an Araya, if all goes well, Araya partition as well, which is also ARM based. So that's going to be a fully ARM based system. So that's two very big systems. There's probably going to be smaller systems that follow suit as well, at least with NVIDIA Grace. And I think even Ampere also did an announcement of a new ARM CPU. So yeah, let's see. So it's definitely coming. It's something we should be aware of. Thanks to Easy, we're actually pretty well prepared for that already, or at least we're actively working on it. So we're testing lots of things on ARM. We're also hitting issues left and right, but that we're figuring out together with the maintainers of those open source packages. We found a bug in OpenMPI, for example, which seemed pretty serious. It seemed serious enough for them to block their next release. So why we were hitting it first, that's not fully clear to me. Maybe we're doing something weird. And there's other projects as well, left and right. Even in GROMAX, I think we found an issue now as well on NVIDIA, on Neoverse V1 CPU. So anything that has SVEs, we found an issue there too. So, okay, we're starting to poke projects left and right. And again, by running the tests through the Easy project, not only doing the builds, but being paying a lot of attention to the test suites, we're finding smallish issues on ARM. So it's definitely, early days is maybe the wrong term, but it's definitely interesting going into that platform as well. So we'll probably see more of that. NVIDIA Grace is on the rise there, so it looks like it's popping up out of nowhere. It hasn't hit 5% yet, but next year I expect it to be significantly higher. Let's see. So the easy days, let's say, of everything Intel is definitely over. In terms of GPUs, yeah, it's pretty much all NVIDIA nowadays, a mix of different generations. What is also interesting is that the older stuff, like Pascal, for example, P100, is still at over 25%, and it looks like people are keeping it alive. It's very difficult to get new GPUs, so people are trying to stretch the lifetime of the stuff they have, and to make sure that all these AI people doing all their LLM trainings, Alexander, can still get their work done. Ampere seems to have peaked, so A100s is at 65%, and it looks like it's staying there. Hopper is on the rise if you can get them, and if your pockets are deep enough, you can buy some Hopper GPUs. But it's pretty much still all Intel, at least in the EasyBuild community it is. People that have AMD GPUs are definitely a small minority. It's currently at about 5%. It's not shown on the plots, but from the survey we see about 5% of AMD GPUs. Yeah.
So I was at a conference last week, and one of the comments that came back from a large user group there was P100, V100 for sort of some of the computational chemistry work and some of that sort of side. They saw no performance improvement when they go to A100s because they don't use tensor cores. So their comment was they're looking for GPU options that don't have that extra tensor core in them because they're hopefully be cheaper. And I know somebody else said A40s as an option for sort of similar reasons. Because the jump in price to even to A100s and to H100s is
The question is, of course, how long NVIDIA will keep supporting these old GPUs. I'm not sure for P100s, can you like update to the latest drivers and still have them operational? Yeah, for now at least. Yeah. Kepler is not supported anymore. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so let's see where this goes. I definitely expect more adoption of AMD GPUs in the short term, because the prices that NVIDIA is handling are just insane. So they're essentially forcing people to look at AMD, at least consider it. I'm not sure they realize that, but that's really what they're doing. I mean, I guess the software ecosystem is definitely holding people back a bit. Things like PyTorch, I'm not sure, Alexander, how familiar you are with PyTorch on AMD GPUs, but it should work, right? But
well, I avoided looking into the microphone.
Yeah.
Rocket software stack that would have been required.
So yeah, I avoided so far looking into AMD support for PyTorch, which would mean getting this ROCm stuff to work.
Yeah, that's the first hurdle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's already enough work getting the CUDA versions to work, and that would be another dimension of things that need to be built and then actually run their tests with that.
And since not too many people have access to that, and even less people are even running the test suite, you're bound to run into trouble there. Yeah.
Yes, same as, for example, on PowerPC, not many people using it. It's not well tested, so less issues got reported, less issues got fixed. Yeah.
But
they are also slower, so it's
even
you need
ones?
twice as much as the same price of an NVIDIA one. So there is very little reason to use it.
Even the new ones, the 300 series?
I have the 200, I don't know.
I think for 300, it's a different matter. But,
well, okay.
And they also have more memory than the NVIDIA ones.
Yeah, but still, it's...
I don't know. Yeah. But I expect it is something that we'll have to deal with in maybe not next year already, but it's coming at least. Yeah, more and more people are going to pick them up.
The other comment I've been hearing is at least you can get them delivered, or at least up to
now
you've been able to
get
delivered now rather than the 6 or 9 month lead time.
Yeah, to some extent that's forcing people.
Well, for the NVIDIA stuff, we've been any number of them. It's just months and months.
So there's going to be impact there. I'm pretty sure. We'll see where it goes. Now, if people are scared about ROCm, some people are looking into it already. Oko is one of them. You've played a bit with the ROCm stuff in EasyBuild. There's other sites as well, but there's not a lot of them. There's not a lot of momentum, let's say, on this. But people are looking into it, and okay, it's more messy, let's say, to get started. Lars, can you? But it is coming, and we are figuring it out. And we can actually get some help from AMD for this as well. So we have some contacts at AMD. If we do need help, we can reach out to them.
I was wondering, does it make any sense to look into SYCL more? to avoid, this specific, we are going down CUDA, we are going down ROCM, so we have to redo it all again. My understanding of SQL is you go down SQL and then the backend is a little bit more agnostic. I might be completely wrong, just to be clear here.
SQL is sitting on top of ROCM. No? You need ROCM first before you can get SQL, I think so. And then you can only support the software that actually uses SQL. Like if it doesn't use SQL, it doesn't really help you. Okay. So it's not really up to us, I would say, whether we put more effort in SQL than in ROCM directly. If the software doesn't support SQL, we're still stuck. And we'll probably have to support both. Okay. There may be advantages of using SQL over ROCM directly, even if both are supported. So, yeah. So not only is it becoming messier in hardware land, CPUs, GPUs, also software is going. It's becoming more complex, more things to look into. Yeah. To some extent, that's one of the motivations for the Easy project as well. Like things are. We knew 3 years ago that things were going to get messy, and it's slowly happening, right? So yeah, we need to plan ahead for that and try to factor that in. Okay, I'm sure we'll get back to these discussions, especially when we have the side talks, when people explain what type of hardware they currently have and maybe what they've been struggling with. Looking at the documentation, so this was a big effort we did in mostly in 2022, where Simon and James were involved with quite a bit. So the old documentation, the structure of that and the way it was being managed wasn't really good. So we did a revamp of that, a lot of effort in porting that over. I think it's a lot better now. It's easier to contribute to as well. It has a dark mode, like it's showing there, not only a light mode. I'm a big fan of dark mode. And we are polling in the survey how happy people are with that. It looks like the new shiny look of the documentation has faded off a bit. So a bit more people are critical over our current documentation than in the previous survey. So that's grown from about 10% to 25% that says, I'm a bit disappointed, or I expected better. That's good. That's good feedback. But we know there's gaps in the documentation. We know there's stuff we can do better. Especially documenting new features is not something we're very good at. So we should try and do that better. But overall, I think it's still a significant improvement compared to what we had before. And it looks like most people are also agreeing with that. The tutorial, which is still a bit disconnected of the documentation, it's a separate site entirely, which is being updated essentially as we are organizing tutorials. What's good news is that more people are now at least aware that the tutorial is there. That was a bit of an issue before. Now we're clearly linking that from the landing page in the documentation. That probably helps. We try to make noise when we do tutorials. That probably helps as well. Maybe I hope this is also what people use when they're new to EasyBuild and they're being introduced to it. So how many people here actually used the tutorial when they were learning about EasyBuild? Okay, at least a handful of people did. That's good. So there, the focus is a lot different compared to the documentation. Of course, it's really step-by-step guides to learning about EasyBuild. I have another slide on this. Yeah. So the last time we did an official EasyBuild tutorial was at ISC 22, a half-day one. We also had one at 21. We resubmitted for ISC 23, but it didn't get accepted. So there was a lot of competition there, and we didn't make the cut. For ISC 24, we changed tactics a bit, and we focused a bit more on the Easy project as a more of indirect way of getting a tutorial for EasyBuild. We actually shot ourselves in the foot there because we submitted 3 tutorials. One on Easy as a more user-focused one on CernVMFS as a more backend thing, together with the CernVMFS developers, and with Easy as an example. And then one on Magic Castle, which is a tool to spin up Slurm clusters in the cloud, where we used Easy again as a running example of how to get software on a fresh Slurm cluster. And some of the reviewers noticed that and gave a lower score for one tutorial because they wanted the other, and then someone else did it the other way around, and it basically killed both submissions. So yeah, okay, I guess that was our own fault for being a bit too aggressive. We were close to getting the easy tutorial accepted, but it didn't make the cut in the end. So yeah, we'll see going forward. We've resubmitted only the easy tutorial for SC in the US. We'll see if it makes the cut there. Apparently, there's a bit more room for tutorials there. So if we already got a good score for ISC, it seems likely that we may get selected. Now, of course, the US is not really our main community, but okay. And to be honest, these tutorials are important mainly in terms of getting the word out and optics. But in terms of actual attendance, you're talking maybe 20 people. And you're not able to record those tutorials either. So it's a one-time thing, and then you lose all that effort to some extent. So it is important to be there or to try to be there. But it's not the best way of getting lots of people to follow the tutorial. The last time we did an actual tutorial, and in this case it was combined with the Easy project as well, was in London last year, right after the EasyBuild user meeting, where we also had about 20 people, I think, attending live. But what was really good there is that we recorded the whole thing, and it's available on the YouTube channel as well. So that lives on, and that's something people can really get back to very easily and for free, because the prices for attending the tutorials at ISC and SC are also quite high. Okay, so that's about a year ago. Maybe it's time for another tutorial. I don't want to give myself more work or try and get other people to do that work. But I think it could make sense, especially since we have an influx of lots of new people, to do another EasyBuild tutorial. If we do, I would make it an online thing, free to attend, maybe split up into small parts, like 3-4 hour sessions, and maybe 2 or 3 of those spread over the same amount of weeks, maybe, just to make sure that people can schedule that in quite well. And we could get very good attendance for that. When we did an online tutorial during the pandemic, because we couldn't do it at ISC, we had over 100 registrations. So that's more worth the effort than having 20 people on site at ISC. If we do that, and there's been some demand for that as well, is we could make it an EasyBuild tutorial that goes beyond the basics, at least in the last part, that talks about implementing hooks, talks about how EasyBuild is being used in the Easy project and all the bells and whistles that come with that. Of course, we'll need effort and time to put those tutorial contents together. All the basic stuff is already there, so we can just rehash and update that a bit. But anything beyond that is probably going to be a bit of work. Now, this could make sense once we have EasyBuild 5 actually available, because then we can make sure that all of that material is updated for EasyBuild 5. And maybe we can cover some of the new stuff that EasyBuild 5 can do in that tutorial as well. Yeah, so for now, it's just an idea. If anyone's jumping around to help out with making that happen, let me know. But we'll see. All right. And jumping ahead, supported software. This graph keeps scaring me, because this line is just straight going up. We're now very close to 3,500 supported software projects in EasyBuild without extensions. So anything we install as an extension on top of something else. So all these Python packages, all these R libraries, all these Perl modules are not really counted in these 3,500. You can easily add 2,000, maybe more, to that number to get a total number of software projects we support. It's pretty insane, right? And it looks like it's not slowing down. We're adding every release, we're adding about 100 projects, new projects that we support. To some extent, I think this is the fault of the AI boom, where people create new tools, people pick up on new tools that they're not familiar with. Yeah, let's see what happens here. There's going to be a bit of a drop here for EasyBuild 5. Because we're archiving old easy configs that are not using recent tool changes anymore. And I forgot the number. Simon, do you know from the top of your head how many projects we would lose? It was in the several hundreds. We can probably look it up easily, but fine. But so we had a small drop here when we released EasyBuild 4. That's also when we archived a bunch of old stuff that nobody seemed to be interested in anymore. The drop for EasyBuild 5 is definitely going to be bigger. So there's going to be a couple of hundred projects that are not supported anymore, at least out of the box for EasyBuild. We can easily bring them back. if there's interest for it, but we only see easy configs with very old tool chains, and nobody's really updating them. Yeah, Sam. Where's the mic? Oh.
Would it be possible to add some kind of trace there? Like, okay, we have software for that, but it's archived. So people know there is some easy config, some old ones. Okay, but they can use that to start an updated version.
When would you add that trace? When people do, there's a search or
yeah, or just in the file tree. Just
and you mean keep the directories around, but just add a README that says this has been archived. Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we can auto generate that as well, so it's not a huge effort to do. There's a question.
Yeah, there's a chat question on which tool chains are being deprecated.
That's coming. So Simon will talk about that this afternoon. Yeah. I won't spoil that fun yet. Okay, so yeah, let's see where this goes. So expect a drop here, and I mean anything that's actively being contributed and updated is going to stay. We're not kicking out stuff for the fun of it.
The archive was still there.
Yeah, the archived easy configs are still there, so you can still, if you want to revive them, you have something to start from. You don't need to start from source, of course, and it's all in Git history as well. That's also something Simon will talk about a little bit this afternoon. All right, going on with the survey, jumping topics a bit, the EasyBuild mailing list, that's a traditional one. It's still active, people are still using it, a lot less than before, but okay. So maybe this is more the old timers who prefer sending emails rather than chatting in Slack. I'm not sure, but it's an important thing to keep alive in the community. Many people rely on it. I'm probably the top poster there, sending reminders for EasyBuild conf calls and releases, but fine. But it's important enough to keep it around at least. What is interesting that a big amount of people, like the yellow line here, about 25% says, I'm not on the mailing list yet, but I should join. Maybe they're not aware it's not very active, and I'm not sure why they just don't join, but okay. Yeah, we're going to keep it around. It's not the main channel today, but it is interesting enough to keep it around. So the volume in terms of posts has definitely gone down. In 2017, we had well over 1,000 emails coming into the mailing list in a year. Then we started with the Slack channel, and it dropped like a stone. Has slowly been going down. Last year, it actually picked up speed a bit again. I don't expect it to come up again fully, but yeah. So some people sent more emails last year than the year before. I don't know. In terms of subscribers, we still have over 300 subscribers. Every now and then, people unsubscribe as well. So this fluctuates a bit, but it's still going up compared to last year. Then in Slack, this is the main hub, let's say, where you can integrate, or when you can get in touch with the EasyBuild community. Many people are on there. So everything green and blue is actively is in the EasyBuild Slack, but is not maybe, first of all, paying attention to it or participating in discussions. So people just read, don't ever reply or mention something there, which is fine. You're not forced to say anything. You can just follow along and try to keep up with stuff being posted there. But we should be aware that there's a big part of the community which we don't hear at all. Not in Slack, not in the mailing list, probably even not in user meetings and conf calls and so on. So some people are just silent, which is fine, but yeah, it's good to be aware of that. This is the activity in terms of what is this message? No, weekly active members. So it's let's say about 100 people are active every week, and about what is it? 20? No, 40 people are posting messages every week. So it's not a hugely vocal community, which is maybe good. There's already enough to catch up on, but fine. What is important to know is that there's 875 people last time I checked in the EasyBuild Slack. It's a very good place to ask questions, to try and get help with something. You usually get an answer relatively quickly. We try to keep it organized as well. So if someone posts a question, we try to make that a thread. So only people interested in that can actually follow along. So you're not bombarded with messages. So yeah, we do what we can to keep this manageable as well. And we see about 150 people joining the Slack every year. So it is steadily growing. It looks like maybe by the time of the next user meeting, we'll have over 1,000 people there. So it is important to make sure everybody behaves and that we can sort of keep this organized a little bit. I think it was, I did mention this on the slide, but last year was the first time we had to kick someone out of the Slack because they were doing some spam type of messages. So we removed the message, we kicked them out. He actually joined again later with a different handle, but he wasn't active anymore. So fine, if you're behaving, you can stay. If you're being stupid, we'll kick you out pretty soon. And there's multiple people that can manage the Slack. It's definitely not only me. Okay, then switching topics again, looking at the environment modules tool. So the only, next to Python, the only true dependency that EasyBuild has, you need some environment modules tool that EasyBuild can talk to, and that it can use to generate module files for. No surprise here, LMOD is still the king of the hill here. What's also good is that it's LMOD 8. For 3/4 of the EasyBuild community is using LMOD 8. About 15% is still using LMOD 7. Now that is going down quite quickly. That's good. LMOD 7 is several years old. It hasn't been updated in a long time. So there's absolutely no reason to still use it. Be aware that we will drop support for LMOD 6 and 7 in EasyBuild 5. So if you're still using LMOD 7, make sure you're not, and you're making the jump to LMOD 8, or you're going to be stuck to the latest EasyBuild 4 release. At least for LMOD 6, people have been getting deprecation warnings. So if you ignore those, yeah, you're shooting yourself in the foot, at least if you make the jump to EasyBuild 5. If you want to talk about LMOD, and at least in Ubuntu, getting recent versions of it, you should talk to Alexander from Jülich. Surak on GitHub, he's maintaining an LMOD package for Debian-based systems. And then there's the competitor for LMOD, the Tcl-based environment modules. The original implementation of environment modules is still actively maintained, but there's only a small minority using that, about 7%.
And you still support that in version 5?
The Tcl-based one, yeah, sure. There's no real. We're actually getting active contributions by the environment modules maintainer into EasyBuild Framework to improve that support. So we don't see a reason to drop support for that. Yeah,
there is a couple, at least some versions will be deprecated.
Yeah.
And if you're using version 4, it might be you need not an ancient version 4.
Yeah, you have to keep up with versions there. So EasyBuild does a version check as well and make sure that you have a sufficiently recent one. That's the only thing we're going to be a bit more strict on in EasyBuild 5.
I do have it in my slides,
yeah.
But I can't remember exactly offhand.
But yeah, especially since we're getting contributions from the maintainer, there's no reason to drop support for this. So. All right, then other tools, I won't spend too much time on this because it's a big mix of things, but some things I noticed is that GC3Pi as a backend for letting EasyBuild submit jobs is almost non-existent. I also think it's not actively maintained anymore. So we haven't done that yet, but we'll deprecate the support for GC3Pi as a job backend. That will make the Slurm backend the default one, which it's not today. So that's a pretty small change, but we'll push that in for EasyBuild 5 as well. Many people are using Apptainer to run container images alongside EasyBuild. I would say I would expect that mostly images they get from anywhere, like from NVIDIA or what else. I'm not sure if that's actually images they're also creating with EasyBuild. I would expect not, but maybe some people are doing that. So how these things are being used is not really clear. What is, I should want to say, a surprise, or well, maybe it should be a surprise, is that many people are also using Conda next to EasyBuild. It's actually growing. It was 25% before, it's now 30%. Like Simon mentioned this morning, I think, at breakfast as well, that they're using it in Birmingham, for example. Yeah, many other sites are doing so as well. There are several caveats there. I don't want to be overly critical on Conda, but in terms of performance, that's definitely something you have to be careful with, what kind of installations you get there. There's also legal stuff going on now with Anaconda. So Anaconda is becoming very aggressive with hunting sites down that are not fully following the terms and conditions. I'm not sure why they're doing that. Are they short of cash and they want to milk some sites, or do they have too many lawyers sitting on their hands, not having enough work? I don't know. But just be aware of that. If you're using Conda, make sure you're following the full legal stuff as well. Stern VMFS, I would expect that's mostly people using Easy, but I'm not sure. Is a small minority. Maybe that will grow as we'll start making more and more noise about that in the EasyBuild community and in the Easy community for sure. There's still a small minority using both EasyBuild and SPAC. I think that's something Luca is going to touch on in his side talk. So it's 10%, and it's a pretty stable 10%. So we see this popping up in the survey over and over again. To me, they're for different use cases. I'm not sure if everybody agrees with that, but that's also fine. Some people are just cherry picking whatever works. If it's a container, then we'll use the container. If it's an EasyBuild, we'll install it with EasyBuild. If it's better supported in SPAC, then we'll use SPAC instead. So I guess to some extent that makes sense. And some other things which were only added to the survey recently is open on demand. So for creating a web portal to let you use this, access your infrastructure through a standard browser. More and more people are using that. I think that makes sense. It's a very good way of drawing in more people. Rich is a tool that EasyBuild can use to give you more colors in your terminal and progress bars and stuff. If you're not using that yet, do a pip install Rich, then try EasyBuild again, and it will look a bit different in some cases. So just visually, that's a useful tool. More people are using Reframe, and Easy is starting to get some better adoption as well. So we hope to see that grow over the years too. Yeah, then a little bit more on Easy. There was a question on Easy. Have you heard about the Easy project? And there's definitely an increase in people that have at least heard about it or even have played with it for sure. So about, let's say, a third now has hands-on experience with Easy to some extent, at least. Maybe not really actively making it available on their site yet, but at least looking at the project and maybe considering adopting it. So again, Easy is now a funded effort since the start of 23 through the multi-scale Center of Excellence. And there's definitely a lot of stuff coming back from Easy into EasyBuild as well, since it's the main tool to install software in that project. I will focus on that on Thursday as well. There's a question here: how many people have Easy available on the main system you use today? So let's say 6 people. Okay. Let's see if that changes next time. But sorry, Easy. Yeah, the Easy project. Not yet. Okay, so yeah, 5, 6 then. Okay. In terms of EasyBuild releases, so how happy are people with that? That's overly positive for now. So we've been having a steady pace of about 7 releases every year. It seems that's something people are quite happy with. Now, releases are not a small effort to do, so it's not pushing a button and the release comes out. It's like at least a day of effort, maybe 2. So usually I try to ask Miguel or Sebastian for some help with preparing release notes, and we do a regression test. It's not a full regression test anymore these days, but we try to really do our homework and make sure there's no breaking changes in the EasyBuild releases. So it is a bit of effort, and that's why we don't want to do it too frequently, but it seems like the community is pretty happy with how frequently we've been pushing out releases so far. Now for this year, I expect this to drop. So we did a 4.9.1 release in April, which is already 4 months into the year. That's quite late. So usually we have a shorter time between releases. We're working on EasyBuild 5, which we hope to get out the door in the coming weeks. Weeks is vague enough. We'll see how soon. It may happen that after 5.0 comes out and people actually play with it and give feedback, that will do bug fix releases of that a bit more quickly than usual. So maybe we'll catch up again, but it's quite likely that this will be a lower number in 24. All right, and then looking at contributors, I always put this in every year, I'm sorry. So contributions to EasyBuild, we get lots of those. We're happy with that, but it's a lot of effort to keep up as well and to process everything the way we want it to and the way they should be processed. So looking into framework, so the core of EasyBuild, last year we got about 200 pull requests. Now the vast majority of that is people outside of Ghent University, which is very good. That used to be very different. If you look at the history here, so everything blue is me essentially. Then the red parts are the rest of the HPCU Ghent team. So most of the team is now no longer involved in active development of EasyBuild. I guess Lara there is now the biggest exception since May of last year. So she's definitely actively contributing to EasyBuild, but the rest of the team isn't really involved in this anymore. There's also no need because we get a lot of pull requests from outside of Ghent University and even outside of the current EasyBuild maintainers. So about a third of all framework pull requests are from non-maintainers, which is good to me. It means that it's relatively, or it's at least doable to get into framework and make changes there, make contributions. So that's a healthy sign, I think. Looking at EasyBlocks, it's okay. It's easier to contribute to EasyBlocks than to framework, so it's less daunting. It's more focused. It's essentially one Python script that you have to deal with, so that's more manageable. Also there, we see a good amount of contributions outside of Ghent and even by non-maintainers. There's less activity here compared to previous years. That's the same as it was in 22. So that's about, let's say 170, 180 pull requests a year. I think, I didn't check this, but I think part of the reason for that is that there's a shift towards using generic EasyBlocks a bit more, which typically need less maintenance as well because they're more generic. So you don't need to update them for particular software releases and so on. So we've introduced additional generic EasyBlocks like Maison Ninja and these type of things. That's maybe why we're seeing less PRs in EasyBlocks than before. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's just less maintenance work in EasyBlocks. Maybe that's good. For 2024, the number is going to be a lot bigger because of EasyBuild 5.
One of the things I've noticed is quite a lot of, there's a fairly decent chunk of projects. Some of them have done it via moving, say, configure make to CMake, but some of them where you just see the upstream project has cleaned up their install and has done significant work. And suddenly you jump from needing a EasyBlock to just going, oh, default CMake will actually allow you to do this because you don't need to
that's
do
anything.
anything.
So the projects themselves has actually enabled us to switch to generic EasyBlocks, and as a result of that, we've actually we're moving some EasyBlocks as well in EasyBuild 5 because there's really no need for them anymore. Either the software is not relevant anymore, or the EasyConfig has been switched to generic EasyBlocks. So that's definitely a help. All right, so that's let's say 200-ish PRs for framework, 180-ish PRs for EasyBlocks. Now the numbers become a lot bigger. If we're looking at EasyConfigs, we got very close to 2,500 pull requests in 2021. Thank you, COVID. Many people had time to open pull requests. It's a little bit lower again in 22 and 23, but it's still high enough that it's a significant effort to keep up. So thank you again to all the EasyBuild maintainers, the active EasyBuild maintainers. Not all of them are active anymore, who help out with that. We try to plan a weekly role, which we call maintainer of the week, where one person is putting themselves up for trying to spend at least 1 hour per day looking at pull requests. That seems to be working quite well. In practice, that usually works out relatively well. It doesn't mean it's the only person looking at pull requests. Other people pitch in whenever they can as well. We're not really keeping up with incoming contributions, I would say, but given the numbers we're getting here, over 2,200 pull requests a year, we're not doing that bad, I think. So we're actually doing quite okay. Let's see what else. Yeah, of course, lots of contributors outside of Ghent. We still do a fair amount of easy configs. We maybe focus a bit more on the tool chains and everything needed for that and common dependencies, and maybe less in the more exotic parts. Yeah, so we're still actively contributing ourselves for sure, but it is, at least my part is definitely going down. So the blue part is going down. I'm spending less and less time myself on easy configs, and it looks like the community is just making up for that. Don't tell me I'm not doing enough, Hassan. Yeah. So that's opening PRs and where they come from. Then looking at merging PRs. So here on the left. Oh, and I should have moved that one, the legend there, but fine. I'm still merging quite a bit of PRs myself, but it's a couple of hundred per year, so it's not insane. It's like, let's say, one a day, which is manageable. All the other maintainers are tackling the bulk of that work. That took some time. As you can see, we started getting other maintainers in 2017. It took some time for them to be maybe confident enough to tackle that work themselves. But again, thanks again for all the help there. Without the other maintainers, EasyBuild would not be what it is today. So there's absolutely no way that we were going to keep up with the over 1,500 PRs we were getting in 2016. Doing that by myself, yeah, I didn't want to say I was burning out, but I was definitely heading towards that. So asking help from maintainers there was a very good move, or it wouldn't have been so positive as it is today. The graph on the right is showing how people are opening pull requests. So we have EasyBuild, we have GitHub integration in EasyBuild where you can open PRs from the command line. The vast majority of the PRs are opened like that. That's a good thing as well. They're easier to review. There's more structure there. So that's a good thing. It's still not 100%. It probably doesn't need to be. That's fine. What's not so good is that we still have a big number of pull requests open, mainly from 22 and 23. So we have cleaned up quite a bit of stuff. There's old PRs still open. I think that's what my next slide is on. Yeah. So this is a historical overview of how many pull requests, easy config pull requests we have open. At some point, we were hitting over 800 open PRs, which was way too high. That's when we sounded the alarm bell to some extent. And that's where we put in some dedicated effort to clean it up a bit. That's also the main reason we have introduced a tool chain support policy, which is something that Simon is going to talk about this afternoon a bit. That has helped us. We're now back to 650-ish, maybe closer to 700 today. But definitely once EasyBuild 5 is released, we're going to chase this down a bit more aggressively and get those numbers down a bit. Especially the PRs from over 2 years ago are unlikely to still be relevant. So those can probably just be closed without too much effort. But this is an ongoing fight. That's pretty clear. And it's a fight that we will have to keep fighting in the years to come. Yeah, so it's definitely a challenge keeping up with things. Now, if you keep in mind that we have 2,500 PRs per year, and we currently have, let's say, 700 open, that's not too bad. So things are piling up a bit, but not insanely. So we are trying to make sure that we keep up to this to some extent. Maybe we should also be a bit more aggressive in closing PRs. Maybe we're sometimes a bit too friendly. I don't know. And that's maybe a situation that has grown over the years as well. So if we close something, we'll add a good motivation to it. It won't be a bright close. But yeah, it's something we'll have to do to try and keep up and make sure we don't drown in open PRs. Then another traditional graph, this is looking at the number of unique contributors over time. So we got about 50 new contributors in 2023. So 50 people who never opened a pull request to the Easy Configs repository before. We now have almost 450 in total. So that's 450 unique people that have at least contributed one Easy Config file. That's quite good. That's again something we definitely didn't expect in 2012 when we open sourced EasyBuild. We were not expecting to get that much help, so that's very good. We keep getting new people that are opening pull requests every now and then. course, for easy configs, this is skyrocketing quite quickly. But also in EasyBlocks and framework, there's an influx of people who are new to that part of EasyBuild and are actively contributing. Sometimes these people come totally out of the blue. They open a pull request and then they disappear again. They have no idea who they are, where they come from, why they make the contribution, and then they just wander off to somewhere else. That's fine. That's what open source is. But it's also sometimes a challenge that we don't have a direct line to these people to discuss something. That can be challenging. This is okay. So this was in total unique contributors over time. This is unique contributors per year. So here you see for framework, we're talking about 20 people that open a pull request to framework per year. So who are confident enough to find their way. For EasyBlocks, that was at around 30 for a while. In 2023, that dropped a bit, even below framework. So we had less people, only 17, who opened a pull request to EasyBlocks. I don't think that's an alarming thing. It can just be coincidence, or there was just less activity in EasyBlocks. We saw less PRs as well, so it's connected to that. But okay, yeah, it is what it is. I already peeked ahead a bit. So in the first quarter of 24, we already have more than 25 people already. So it's like a temporary thing, probably more of a coincidence than anything else. For easy configs, we're dealing with close to 130 unique people in 2023 who opened a pull request. That's good. That's a lot of people who know their way around enough, have enough confidence to open PRs. Again, it's a challenge for maintainers. The more people we have to talk to, or the more people we're processing contributions from, the more of a challenge it is. But okay, we shouldn't complain here. We should be happy that we're getting these contributions. And then I think this was the final question in the survey. How happy are you with EasyBuild today? How would you rate the overall quality of EasyBuild? That's overly positive. Again, here, there's a bias here. People who hate EasyBuild will probably not sit down for half an hour and fill out a survey, but fine. It is quite positive, and we still haven't had anyone who ever answered pretty bad. So Todd hasn't filled out the survey ever. I don't know. Maybe maybe he likes it a lot. That's possible. Yeah. So overall, people are pretty happy with EasyBuild. Of course, that's why they're in the community as well. Okay, then a couple of other slides to wrap up. We're doing quite well on time. All right, excellent. So looking into goals and challenges for the coming months, let's say first, so the short term. The top one there definitely is finishing up the efforts on EasyBuild 5. We've been working on that for about a year now. I checked my slides of last year, and last year we said we hope to release EasyBuild 5 in 2023. That didn't happen. Then I think my next goal was make it the first release of 2024. That was taking a bit too long as well, so we pushed out 491 as well. I think we're relatively close to it now. We have a good plan ahead. So Simon is going to talk about this afternoon as well. We'll get it out the door when it's ready, essentially. So there's no real deadline there for us. I'm not sure that someone is really waiting on EasyBuild 5. There's not that either. But it is a bit of a problem that we have these two lines, the 4 branch and the 5 branch side to side. We have to sync these all the time. Some people are already mostly in the 5 branch, and then they have to make sure they don't cause trouble. So yeah, it is. We're losing some time by having both side by side. So it's in our best interest to get this finished pretty soon. It's now an effort of, let's say, about 5 people. Simon, is that right? Who are actively contributing to EasyBuild 5 development. I think it's you, me, Jasper, Bart, Mikael is a little bit as well. Adam is there in meetings to support us. It hasn't been doing hands-on stuff a lot, so it's down to like 5 people. That's part of the reason it's taking a while. Of course, there's a lot of things we want to do, and basically none of us have a lot of time to work on that. So it's taking some time, but we are getting there. Alex, Alex is another one. you're trying to break stuff, yeah, to make it. Yeah, actually, you've been helping as well. You're not a maintainer, but you've been actively helping with some maybe more, yeah, maybe some more controversial stuff or some things you really want to see changed, and now's the time. Yeah, but okay, yeah. You'll get some time hands-on this afternoon as well, if all goes well, to play with EasyBuild 5. So that's when you can start discovering it and letting us know how much you like it up until now. Another challenge, and that's maybe a bit personal or specific to Ghent, and actually I'm not sure how specific it is, so that's a question I have for the people here and also online, is keeping up with software installation requests we get from users. So the graph there on the right shows how many installation requests we get and the HPC team at Ghent University per year. So that used to be around 200 per year. And all of a sudden in 2022, that almost doubled to about 400 per year. And that's quite a challenge to keep up with that. We were hoping it was a temporary thing, but 2023 was pretty much the same thing. And for this year, we're already well over 100 requests as well. So it's not really slowing down. It's maybe even speeding up a bit. So that's a challenge going forward. I think to some extent, that's us shooting ourselves in the foot. We've been screaming to people like, if you need software, just let us know and we'll install it for you. And also, like, if they do a module avail on something that doesn't exist, it tells them, open a software installation request here. So, okay, it's part of the service I think we offer next to keeping the systems running. But it is a big challenge. And I also feel that the stuff that people are coming up with is more and more difficult. It's not like one thing anymore that's missing a dependency. It's one thing that's missing 5 dependencies, which in turn are all missing 3 dependencies as well. So the stack is becoming deeper and deeper, and you're only seeing the top of the iceberg when you get the requests.
That's my question.
Yep.
Is that requests or request including the dependencies?
No, that's only the requests.
Okay, shit.
Yeah. So the numbers, that's like if you factor in weekends and leave days, that's about 2 per day that you get, that you have to install. There's just no way you can keep up with that. We don't like saying no to these requests, but every now and then we have to say, look, this is insane. And what we're also doing, and we need to check those numbers again, we see that a big amount of the installations we do are never used, which is even worse. You spend all that effort into it, and then they never even bother using it. At least not, yeah, we only check, okay. Yes, that's true. But we're looking at what we have installed. Not everything EasyBuild has.
In the earlier slide, you talked about, and you mentioned me for Conda and Aptainer. One of the bits I'm putting in for at least some of the software we get requested is understanding what the user wants to do with it. And a self-installed Conda environment for a single node bit of software that they're only going to use a couple of times is a perfectly valid way of talking them through how to do it and giving them a better understanding for at least the ones that can follow instructions.
Yeah. Do you have a structured way of doing that? So is there a structured way of people asking, I need the software installed, and we have to indicate like I expect it to use once, or?
So we don't structure the request. It's a large chunk of it is I know some of the repeat people who ask for software,
asking things over and over again.
Some of them I'll go, we'll do this method now and revisit in 3 months' time. If you're still wanting to use it again and again, then we'll move it more centering. It often depends for the bits of software where the only listed install method is Conda. That's one of the times I often start looking at this, because it's Conda, and I open their Conda environment file, and it's like 500 items in there, and I'm going, and I'm looking at the thing and going, I think my user doesn't actually want this more than once. So
we have a summer intern that actually did some scripting to try to tie the knot a bit more between Conda and EasyBuild. Like if there's something that's supported in Conda already, it will just do a bunch of auto-generated stuff that you can then do that installation with EasyBuild as well. We should maybe try and get that out there as well and see if it's something that's useful for the broader community. Yeah, there's a question in the back.
Not only so much of a question, but also comment. We see similar things that users are requesting a piece of software, and I look into it and I think, oh yeah, that's easy. And then I go down that rabbit hole, and I go down a different rabbit hole and all of that. And I was wondering, if we see something, does it make any sense to say, okay, I just put it in Slack and say, I want to install Error, for example, which came up the other day. And is anybody seeing a similar ticket, and shall we just join an effort? So instead of me doing 10 easy config files very easily and spending 2 weeks on it, it is only me doing, say, 5, and somebody else is doing another 2, and somebody else is picking up the other
try
ones.
and coordinate the efforts.
Yeah.
I think I did that recently.
So
We just didn't communicate.
but is through Slack the best channel for that? What we have in the VSC, in the Flemish Supercomputing Center, we have a central public GitHub repo where we manage our requests. And it's mostly Ghent and Brussels doing that, Leuven to some extent, Antwerp a little bit as well. So it's not as well adopted across all the sites. But this is how we communicate the work to the Inuits consultants, for example. We open issues in the GitHub repo, and they pick up on those and even push their draft EasyConfig files to a branch, to a WIP branch, where we can easily then help them out if they need help, or where they can even reach out to the EasyBuild community and ask help because their draft work is already available publicly. Maybe that's something we could or should shift centrally into EasyBuild and set that up. So like a more sandbox environment where you can share your stuff with the community. Yeah, if you have concrete suggestions there, York, maybe we can follow up on that through. And Thomas is saying maybe easy is the solution. Yeah. That's my next bullet point. Yeah. So easy is definitely part of the motivation for this, for the increase in and requests. Another challenge, less goal for the coming months, years, even if you take into account multiscale, which runs until the end of 2026, is whatever we need to do in Easy to help, in EasyBuild rather, to help the Easy project. Sometimes we need to implement additional small features and framework to help us out a lot. The from commit thing, the new feature that was added in EasyBuild 4.9.1, where you can pull easy config files very easily from a particular commit, not just from a pull request. That's one of the things that was motivated by Easy. So sometimes there's a little bit of work being done there that's maybe mostly relevant in Easy and not really beyond that, which takes away some time from other development work or maintenance work. Again, maybe a bit personal, but I expect other people to hit this quite soon as well, is support for RHEL 9. Now, RHEL 9 is not that scary. We've already built hundreds of things with EasyBuild on the RHEL 9 system, so it mostly works, at least if you stick to sufficiently recent software versions. If you go too far back in tool chains, even 22B and older, it's becoming very hairy for RHEL 9, so take that into account. If you really want those old installations, you may have to do quite a bit of work to get that working. The main issue there is OpenSSL 3. So in RHEL 8, you have OpenSSL 1.1 something. In RHEL 9, you have OpenSSL 3, which is in EasyBuild. We mostly use OpenSSL 1.1 as a dependency. So you need to introduce a hook to translate that to an OpenSSL 3 because you don't really want to install OpenSSL 1.1 from source with EasyBuild. It will happily do that, and then just flat out going to ignore your system OpenSSL, which is being updated for security issues. So you don't really want to do that. We have a hook in Ghent now pretty recently, which we should probably share with the wider community to do that. So I'll add it to the framework contrib and maybe even send an email on that so people are aware what we're doing there exactly. But that's going that's going to be a bit of a challenge, and don't actually expect a huge amount of effort. There are some software projects which only fail on RHEL 9 because of a newer glibc or because of OpenSSL 3 or other things that are a little bit different there. So I've run into a couple of those where some of them I still need to fix, but so there's new problems there, new operating system. And then related to both Easy and RHEL 9, and we've actually been saying this for a while already, but we should really look into it, is to revisit the environment or environments in which we're testing mostly easy config PRs. CentOS 7 was already mentioned. Maybe it's still relevant enough that we should be actively testing for that. The only test environments that we consistently use today are the two test bots we have, which is Generoso running at CSCS, so that's a Rocky 8 virtual cluster, and the JSC Zen 3 system in Jülich, which is a virtual Rocky 9 cluster. Both of those are used quite well, but we're using them bare, so we're not running stuff in containers there or really controlling the operating system environment. We should probably be doing that. So we can more flexibly also test for CentOS 7 or easily test for Rocky 9 on both these. We should also be actively testing stuff already in easy config PRs in the EasyBuild environment, which is a bit special. It has RPOD linking, which is again going to be very relevant very soon for EasyBuild 5. But there's some other quirks in there that sometimes we run into installation problems too late in Easy that could have actually already been easily fixed in EasyBuild through that original pull request. We probably don't want to make that a blocking thing. So if it doesn't work in Easy, that's probably not a good enough reason to block the pull request from being merged. But then at least we're aware that there's an issue there. We can easily get back to it later when we want to add this to Easy as well. And then looking for specific features like the module only and the sanity check only command line options. Those actually work pretty well, but they don't work consistently. And the only reason to make the only way to make them work consistently is by actively checking both these options because they're a little bit different. Also, when we're testing easy config PRs. Now they're both quick. They don't do a reinstall or anything. They just regenerate the module and rerun the sanity check. But sometimes that's broken, and if it's broken, it's usually a bug in the easy block, not in the easy config. But then at least we know that there's work to be done there. Yeah.
I put my foot in now. IP version 6. How much do you test that on Easy?
IP version 6, not at all.
Because some of the cloud providers, I think it is Amazon, they are only using IP version 6 now. We internally in our cluster are using IP version 6 now completely. So there is no IP version 4.
Yeah.
And how to put that politely? I think the way forward is we have to test it, like it or not, because it is actually now happening a bit more than the last 20 years.
Even
And
internally in clusters.
internally, all our compute nodes have only an IP version 6 IP address.
And how often do you run into trouble with that? Like with installations or tests not working?
Installations, it is OpenMPI. We need to have a newer, what is it?
UCX?
UCX, yeah. 112. Or when I updated to EasyBuild 491, I actually had to switch to UCX 113 for whatever stupid reason I couldn't work out. But then it was working. So here, particularly with the Easy project, we should really bear that in mind.
That it also works, yeah. Is this relevant for you? Okay. Or you just see it as important enough that we should pay attention to it? Yeah. Yeah. Well, this so Easy and the operating system we test in, the types of CPUs we test for as well. It's now x86 only. We probably need to start paying closer attention to ARM there as well. And then let's say the special factors or special aspects like IPv6. We cannot test in 100 environments, right? So we need to somehow have a good selection of configurations that makes sense. Now for me, and not everybody agrees there, for me it makes sense if we test Easy, if we test in the EasyBuild environment, that we do that on an ARM system. Because, okay, we're combining two different things there, but if any problem pops up there, then we know it's either ARM or Easy that is causing the problem. If it's working well there, it's pretty likely it will also work on x86 because we're testing it in other places. And finding a good combination of these things is maybe the best approach. I'm not sure where we would add IPv6 in that mix, but we need a system that's configured for this as well. Yeah. Yeah, we're heading into lunch break, so I'll finish. I have 2 more slides. The spoiler slide, which I don't want to spend a lot of time on EasyBuild 5. Sure, many people have questions there, what's going to happen there and when. All I can say for now is that we have done a lot of effort on this already. We started April last year, so we're about a year into this. We've merged a couple hundred PRs there across framework, EasyBlocks, and EasyConfig, so we've made some very good progress. There's some main breaking changes there. Python 2.7 will no longer be supported. You'll need at least Python 3.6 and at least LMOD 8 if you're using LMOD. Internally, we've changed some stuff. Simon is going to talk about all the details. The defaults out of the box will be a little bit different. So EasyBuild will behave a little bit different, but you can reconfigure it to go back to what EasyBuild 4 was doing by default if you prefer that. We're working on improving the consistency of naming of EasyConfig parameters and configuration options. But we're going to do that in a non-breaking way, at least for EasyBuild 5. So the impact of that will be pretty limited early on, and that impact is only going to come later. And the toolchain support policy, which I already mentioned, Simon is going to talk about that this afternoon, what that means. So what kind of policy we're adopting there from EasyBuild 5 onwards, essentially. So more on that this afternoon and later this week as well. Or if people have already some concerns or questions, feel free to mention them, either online or over lunch. And then longer term, that's my last slide. Keeping up with incoming contributions, that's a clear challenge that we have, not for the short term, but for the long term. Hopefully we'll keep getting as many contributions as we do now. And hopefully we figure out better ways of keeping up with them. Maybe becoming a bit more aggressive with that is one approach. So PRs that are, say, older than 1 year maybe deserve a bit more, let's say, a bit less flexibility to keep them open because they're unlikely to still be relevant. Support for ARM and support for AMD GPUs and ROCm is definitely something we'll have to look into, not only because it's coming, but also because it's one of the things we promised in the multi-scale project. So we have a task there on what we call emerging system architectures. To me, both of these are still emerging. The ARM one is definitely an ongoing work. And we've discovered some issues there already, probably not the last ones, but it's ongoing. AMD GPUs we'll have to get into in the coming months, at least in the scope of multi-scale. I didn't mention RISC-V here yet, but that's one we're also actively looking into. Already, at least in the last couple of weeks, we've done some groundwork for that. So that's coming too. And yeah, things are going to get more diverse, and we'll have to figure out a way to keep up with that and do the necessary development work to make that supported. And there's probably other goals and challenges that you think we should have. If that's the case, let us know this week or open issues, talk about it. So what's important to you, or what are you really waiting for, or what you think is really should happen? Hopefully also what do you actively want to help out with? Yeah, this week is all about that. So let us know if that's the case. Yeah, and that's all I have for now.